An online course launched a year ago has become the most popular one in the country. More than 20,000 people have enrolled in the University of Alberta's Indigenous Canada course. It is dedicated to teaching Canada's history from an Indigenous perspective. Joining us today is Paul Gareau. He leads that course. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Paul, what is it in this course that makes you think it has become so popular?
I feel like the course itself is offering a viable engagement with reconciliation, and in terms of giving Indigenous perspective and a voice to Indigenous people in their experiences in history and contemporary engagement and experiences.
What are some of the specific topics that are in the course?
Well, it's mostly thematic, looking at like things. We start with worldview, but we also move into like, instead of looking at entire history and focusing on something, we'll do a theme on fur trade, which are important, but also looking at things like treaty specifically, looking at residential schools, but also looking at red power and politicization, sovereignty and understandings of land and sovereignty, as well as women's roles and city and art. So it's like it really follows a 12-week thematic approach, which is very, very successful, I find.
What's some of the response that you've had from people?
People have been very, very positive. We've had like a 98% approval rating in Coursera itself, which is really wonderful. We have over 21,000 learners, right? So people have been very, very responsive, saying like, we've never heard, especially a lot of non-Indigenous people speaking about they've never heard this story before, which is very indicative of Canada's history, right? Of Indigenous peoples being voices and experiences being left out of the discussion about what makes Canada. So this is really a nice intro offering into that story and allowing people to come in and tell that story, right? As best as we can from an online perspective.
Were you surprised at the response, Paul?
Yes, we were very surprised because in 12 months, like 21,000 learners, it's been really incredible. And we didn't even do that much like advertising about it. It was just word of mouth and like our faculty picking it up with their tours and stuff like that. Like we have faculty members who went to Sweden with the Sami and talked about the book there, and they were very excited about it because for the Sami even they have an experience of residential schools that are not dissimilar to Canada. So they are also having struggles as Indigenous people up there, and it's just good, the solidarity between Indigenous people here and across the globe, right? So it's been very incredible, the reach of it, yeah.
It really speaks to this idea that Canada is waking up to some of its own history and is looking for information on it.
Yeah, I think so, yeah, and which is really like what I said at the top of the story, that this is a viable, it feels like a viable engagement with reconciliation, where there's a lot of stopping of that discussion, right? Whereas this is it seems to be a good way for non-Indigenous people to engage into that conversation.
Well, thanks for joining us from Edmonton this morning.
Thank you very much.